Good afternoon, mamas. This is Devin, and I'm from Homeschool House Calls, and we're with Susan from Homeschooling Supermoms, and we're really excited. We're with Candice Dugger. She is from Bullied, Broken, and Redeemed.com. She's got some exciting stuff coming, and we're going to talk about bullying today. And well, Candice, I'm so glad you came.
I am glad to be here. We've been Facebook friends and Clubhouse friends for a while, but it's so exciting to be here with you.
And see somebody face to face.
Live.
Yeah, it is. It's very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about your topic today. We're really excited to learn all about it.
Well, this is literally, this is a topic that's obviously very near and dear to our hearts. It's something that I don't think in my years growing up, I'd be like, I can't wait to be an anti-bullying speaker. It's not something you put your feet on the ground and dream of as a kid, right? But our journey started off like I know many folks in the last several years who have come to homeschooling have not shown up here in a place of, I can't wait to spend all day with my kids. They're coming here for a safe haven from their schools due to anxiety or bullying or a combination of a lot of things, right? And so that was a lot like our story. I used to run really large corporations and companies, got very sick. And it was during that time I was on almost a 3-year bed rest, really sick, that I saw that my son was really hurting. He was 12 at the time. And it was a combination of mostly horrific bullying. And guys, I'm talking about something we almost can't comprehend because we didn't experience what bullying's like today. I think many adults get the playground bullying, the in-person bullying, that. But the cyberbullying, gaming bullying, 24-hour cycle mode that can attack you now is something that's really hard in that connection for parents to get. And so we were dealing with that, along with he had a pretty extensive IEP. He has dyslexia and dysgraphia and dyscalculia. So not only was he going to school and getting attacked, coming home and getting attacked, when he's in the classroom, he's spending most of his time on what he doesn't excel at. I mean, the solution is if you have dysgraphia, let's give you another paper to learn to write with. Well, that doesn't really help when you're spending all of your time in places that you feel like you're not accomplishing anything and you're feeling broken. And it really broke my son's will to live. And he had wanted to take his life and had attempted suicide. And it was really an eye-opener to us. And I really didn't even understand at the time the impact of how bad it was for him. And I will tell you that because 90% of kids never tell their parents and 70% never reach out to anyone. And this is a kid that's in youth groups. We're a very close family. We're all connected. You think you're doing the right thing and having these conversations, but I knew something was deeply wrong. And when I prayed about it, I felt God telling me we needed to homeschool and not go to another school, not go to a private school, not switch, but really clearly to save our son, we needed to homeschool. And to me, I was like, Lord, you need to come up with another plan because that is not happening. But I got to the point, I was like, okay, we'll just do it. We did it my husband was not on board. My family wasn't on board. Nobody really felt I could do this. I had a kid who was in a tough place and I was really sick. How could I possibly do this on my own? But we brought him home for his 8th grade year, and slowly, I mean, guys, it's been a long battle. He's 17 now. It's been a long battle, but the miraculous change that has happened in him has forever changed his life. And I think the biggest takeaway that I got from that are the struggles that I had as a mom, right? Here, I never wanted to homeschool. I felt forced into it. Not that I wasn't going to be obedient to God, but I really felt left out from public education. I didn't feel we fit in. I didn't know what to do. I was terrified. I'm hoping sleeping with the door open at night that my son's going to be there in the morning. We're in a bad place. And when I came to homeschooling, I think there was a big disconnect between me and a lot of the folks because I understood my laws and I knew the curriculum, but how do you take somebody who's broken, who's in mental distress and crisis and go, let's do algebra? It doesn't work. And so when families talk about that deschooling process, that's a piece. But for families in trauma or in crisis or that are dealing with mental health, there's so much more that needs to happen between here's your laws and here's your curriculum. Yes. The magic and the power and healing comes from rebuilding those relationships and building back self-confidence and allowing the time without the pressure to heal. healing, the work God can do in you and your family and your lives during that time is more magical than anything they'll ever learn in the books. And I went to school and got psychology is kind of my background. So I kind of took a bunch of that with really just prayer and discernment. And we ended up pushing my son where we thought he could excel to gain his confidence, yet backing way off on other stuff. And to give you guys some ideas of what that practicality, like what does that mean? When he came home, nothing looked like traditional school, right? So he was learning all the time, but nothing looked like real school. It was tons of wilderness survival and nature hikes, and he's massively into football. So he was reading, just very much diving into anywhere that he could, and just letting him find himself again, right? Mm-hmm. He came home feeling God didn't create him for anything. He felt broken from his peers, and he felt that school had put him in a box that he had no God-given talent. And so we spent 100% of our time helping him find out how he was beautifully and uniquely created, and none of our time worrying about the other stuff, right? If you don't know your purpose, or you don't feel you have purpose in life, all the rest kind of falls along the side. It's hard. It's hard. And so we took lots of field trips and fun and documentaries and reading. And some people may look at that as an unschooling approach, but we didn't even push into that category. I mean, it was really letting him find himself for a long time. It took us a while. And I will tell you guys, when they say, 1 month for about every year you're in school, it was about 9 months for us. He did jump into some schoolwork in 8th grade, but it was about all right. It took a while. We were in a bad place. But the beauty is because we took the time for healing early, when he was ready to engage, this kid that I brought home who could not write hardly a sentence. Though this kid's bright. I know he's bright. He could speak 3 languages by the time he was 5. But he had felt so broken. He was hardly writing a sentence. He wasn't getting basic math done. That kid, now just this year, he's 17. He just applied to his first school and got over $100,000 in academic scholarships for 4 years and was able to start college at 16 because we allowed him to find himself in a way that was him, not how the world told him he had to be, right? So, but that's not easy. And I want to, really parents to parents, I get that's not easy, because when you're coming out of a system that tells you wake up, how many hours a day of school and testing, and will they fall behind, and all of that pressure, and then the pressure you feel from parents and grandparents and other educators, you feel you're behind, even though you're not, because your child is already in a place. You feel like you're just not making traction some days, right? And connecting to relationships isn't exactly something our education system values. A holistic approach to education and our mental health and our well-being just isn't something that's put as a priority. And so it's not really easy when you try to find the right places and find the right classes. It can be really intimidating, I think, as a parent. And I know for myself, I felt it big time. Yeah. Even trying to find the right co-ops or groups when we were ready, trying to find your place to fit in isn't easy. That's quite a struggle. So, so that's a little bit of our story. And you guys would think I'd have learned so much with my first one. I haven't even told you my second. So I get this kid's all good. He's fine. He's not fine, but we're making progress, right? A couple of years later, his younger brother, who was in 3rd grade at the time, had really been having problems with bullying. And by the time he was in 4th grade, it had gotten really bad. I mean, he was having his face thrown in the urinal. He was being punched, traditional, what we would have considered bullying, in-person bullying. This kid was experiencing every day. And at 9 years old, I found that little baby under the bed screaming, "I'd rather die than go back another day." And I was like, that's it. I am never doing this again. I am never doing this again, because there is nothing in that building that is worth the cost of my boys' souls. Nothing. And so my husband's like, "Are you going to do this? I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. He's on the spectrum. He's in a bad place. My other kid's got all this. I'm like, I don't know, but God provided the first time and he's going to provide again. And so we haven't only done that with one, we've done it with 2 kids. And so I think, and we live in one of the top districts in the entire country, in an amazingly very wealthy, great influential area. And people, it's great schools, you know, all of the things you look for. And I think the biggest takeaway is that it happens everywhere, right? It happens everywhere. It happens in our camps. It happens in our church groups. It happens in families. It happens at workplace. It is not something we can run from, but it was something that I needed to help them build new tools on to be more effective, especially our students with disabilities and learning differences. There's such a bigger, higher target rate. I think as a society, we need to do a better job of equipping them and all around, right? I mean, all around, a little more compassion and empathy in what we do for our kids with special needs. So now that's how I ended up homeschooling both of them. And now my goal is really, I really have a huge heart to make an impact in the homeschool community, because we talk to so many families just like ours all over the world who need help and they need a fresh start. And sometimes, guys, that's not forever. Sometimes it's a couple of years and then the kids are in a different place that they're ready to try something else, but they need some new tools in their tool belt, right? Till they can get there and be more effective so that it doesn't hold them back for life.
What do you think homeschool leaders can do better to support parents who are coming out of public school with bullying?
Yeah. So this is something I appreciate the question, Devin, because I've thought a lot about this. Number one, training. I don't think that the many people that even pick up the phone or deal with it understand cyberbullying, gaming bullying, revenge porn, understanding that geography alone will not fix the solution. This is a cultural issue, not just a school issue. And so leaders, by educating yourselves on the issue, most people think they know bullying, but they can't identify it. They can't even put the words together to really understand, am I dealing with conflict, kids being kids? Am I dealing with bullying? So number one, if you're a leader in your co-op or in your community, have you even as a community done any training for your folks on staff? Because if you have more than 7 kids gathered, 7 to 10 kids, any age group, this is very customary. And it's something that can be dealt with effectively if there's the right training involved to allow a place for people to speak up and to know what to do, right? Yeah. And so if you haven't, I would really consider that. And so we teach all the different approaches of understanding bullying, being able to identify it, what to do as a leader, how do you have those discussions? Because it's also can be very tricky. You want to make sure you're molding kids in the right direction because they make mistakes. I don't want to label the people down, but we need to be able to identify it. And if you have a kid who is really becoming a serial bully in your campuses or in a house or in a community, we are not doing them any service by making excuses and avoiding it. Because 37% of those kids are going to end up with a criminal record by the time they're 25. They're going to end up in domestic violence, abusive relationships. They're going to end up in really bad places, right? So when we allow poor behavior because we don't want to deal with it, or there may be some of the behaviors and personalities of bullies can be really tough to deal with. They can be really manipulative too, right? They can many times be our really popular kids who act one way to the parents in a very different way behind their backs. They can cry and turn it on and turn it against them, like they started it. There's a lot that can happen there. But if we don't help them understand their behavior and curb it, all we're doing is setting them up for a life down the road that's bad, right? So that's why it's important in our shepherding and when we're kind of mentoring the kids alongside of us to help them be accountable for some of their own behaviors and self-looking at some of the things they're doing, because it can be devastating in their lives.
Yeah.
Okay. Candice, when we talked briefly before we all joined live, and we talked about how bullying is everywhere. It doesn't matter if it's in the public school or
Mhm.
private school, or once we leave
The
school
homeschool.
into the work
It's a
environment.
cultural issue, right?
And it can happen in the homeschooling setting just as much.
Oh yeah.
Homeschooling, like we go to co-ops and covers and play groups and, these different
Churches,
things.
youth groups, vacation Bible study, everywhere.
Exactly. And are there certain, I know that parents are concerned about these types of things if their child is being bullied.
Mhm.
Are there warning signs that might indicate so they can catch them at early stages? Are there suggestions for conversations to help parents to kind of dig through this? Can you kind of shed some light on that?
Yeah, I can. There are a lot of warning signs that kind of come up, right? Some of the basics. Like you can tell in your children, are they not wanting to engage in the activity anymore? Do they not want to go? Have they stopped wanting to go to co-op or go to church with you? Is there a reason? Because I will tell you, even with my oldest son, the children who were bullying him at school were in his church youth group. So just because they're in, it's everywhere. It is not an isolated thing. So if they're not wanting to go somewhere, is there a reason for that? Right? Are they open to having conversations? And I would also, guys, this is something I really want to impress upon many parents. Any bit of information your children give you is more precious than any Bitcoin or rupee or gold. That information can actually save their life. And I don't say that to be dramatic, but if they speak out and share something with you, please, please, please take a deep breath. You can have the storm on the inside, but keep calm on the outside, because they're going to be looking at your face and your body language. They're going to be looking at how you're interacting. They're going to be wondering, are you safe that I can give you more information, or do I need to be quiet because you're going to punish me, blame me, take things away? Right. So sometimes parents jump to, and I can say this for myself. When my son was in 7th grade, it was kind of, well, what did you do? Like, I know they did this. Did you do something to maybe start this interaction? Because you're kind of looking at it from both sides, trying to figure it out. Where now I realize that taking that almost pregnant pause and a deep breath and responding to, that must be really hard. Would you share with me more? Would have been much more effective than trying to unpack it all, because you may not have all the information yet to make a decision, and they're going to give you tiny, tiny bits. Because what do most of us parents do? Let's say they're dealing with gaming bullying or cyberbullying. Well, we tend to take everything away. So are you a safe person to come to, or are you just going to be somebody who's going to punish me and take all my stuff away if I say something, right? Or if they've maybe made a mistake, because a lot of kids right now, my goodness, the issues of even sexting and what happens with revenge porn or people throwing out photographs. If your child has made a mistake and said something they shouldn't have, are you going to come down and punish them? Or are you going to be somebody who can help them work through the problem and solve it? Right. So these are all really tough issues that parents are dealing with, and they're dealing with them really young. We have kids that are 7, 8, and 9 coming to us with full suicide plans. Their parents have come to us because their children as young as 7, 8, and 9 have already had written out suicide plans. Their kids under 10 have been sending nudes, and this is happening younger than you think it is. And I say that 4th grade is the new middle school because that is really our reality. What we can't even imagine our kids dealing with has jumped to a reality because of access to the internet and online. And that's not saying that's all wrong, but even the kids they're interacting with, when we grew up, our bullies learned to bully from the people in our community. That's the best that they got. Now they're learning to bully from the best around the world. If they want to perfect their skill, they watch other people do it. They learn the manipulation behaviors. They feed into being able to learn how to cause and inflict the most pain out of somebody. And that's the goal, is to take that power over them and cause pain, right? So we're in a tough position as parents. And that's why we start so much of our training. Bullying begins at the age of 3, guys. Very common now in pre-K. We hardly ever saw that before until late elementary, maybe mid-elementary school when we were growing up, but pre-K. And what our kids in 4th grade are going through is stuff that you and I probably dealt with 12, 13. And that's just the reality. So the earlier we can get educated as parents, because this last 10 years, this last decade, since 2011, when we started giving access to kids online, social, and I'm not blaming that for it. I'm just saying there's a direct correlation between 2011 which was about the age that the first kids kind of got the cell phones in their hands, right? They had access to these type of things, and their mental health, for their ability to be able to take back that negative feedback, to process that negative feedback and growing development, that has exploded suicide rates in our youth. Exploded it to the point that they now even have a term, bully-cide, which is when you have taken your life of suicide due to bullying.
Oh, wow.
It has exploded. And it's a direct correlation in that last 10 years. So, and it can happen instantly, right? And we haven't even talked about really some of the other difficult issues that when you're dealing with bullying, many of our kids, and I'll tell you, our homeschoolers are really kind of primed for this. Sex trafficking through video cams and things, huge issue, because we're not necessarily talking to our kids about it. And kids who are bullied are being attacked in so many ways. Somebody's nice to them. It's easy to be groomed and put into a private chat. And then you don't have to leave your house to be sex trafficked. There are webcams, there are all kinds of things happening. And in the height of COVID, it's something that we've seen a big uptick in. Actually, the first week of lockdowns, we started getting calls on more kids getting sex trafficked through the webcams and bullying in their homes, just in the very first week. So they're complex issues that our parents didn't have to deal with. Yet we as parents have to get educated about it because it's exploding in our communities, and it is not a school issue. Our kids are going to deal with it in college. They're going to deal with it in our homes. They're taking everything away really isn't the solution, because then if we bubble them while they're here, when they launch, they're really struggling in those first year or two to keep up with, how do I handle these conflict versus this bullying, and how do I engage, and how do I manage it on my social media, or how do I manage it in a workplace, right? Because it is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So, you've shared with us about retaliation porn, because I'll be honest, I was not aware of what that was. And can you give us some insight on what gaming bullying is? So there may be parents that are not familiar with that as well.
Yeah, of course. So to give you guys an idea, the average age of gaming bullying starts at 9 years old is the average. And so in games, now I am not anti anything, right? Every family needs to figure out what's best for themselves. But let's pick something very easy. Fortnite, right? Think of your kids being, let's pick this example because this happened to my son. He would go to school with his friends. The kids who were bullying him at school came home, would log into the account with him, and then attack him within that game. So even when he came in logged in, he was being attacked within the video games from words, you should kill yourself, you're the worst player, I can't even believe we have to go to school, like all of these accounts directed to him. If you're not dealing with that, there are also things like griefers, there's other ways in games, video gaming, that kids who are in a really vulnerable and hurt place can be ganged up on and attacked and really feel personally attacked, right? So I don't want to say there's a blanketed statement because there's all types of things, but if you're noticing that your kids are getting overly explosive and frustrated when they're online, right? Are they walking away crying and frustrated and angry? You may have something you need to deal with. It may not just be in losing the game. There are conversations that can happen verbally. We've had to step in several times with both of my kids' accounts at different times and either block people, report people, or send messages, because these are little developmental brains that aren't really able to process the difference sometimes between gaming and where it's overstepped the line.
Yeah.
But many of these things are playing with people around. I'll throw out another one. If you guys are familiar with Among Us, do you know Among Us? It's a pretty popular, very big game happening. Last fall, I was getting tons of calls of people, kids were playing. You know, it can be fun, it can be easy, but how many people were using it as grooming to get kids into those private chat rooms within that, and then very instantly, because they're being ganged up in this one place, they're the ones being called out, right? It's kind of not really bullying, but like the whole thing is who's done it, right? So sometimes they feel frustrated or ganged up on. Somebody being nice to them and offering to private message them And then they start playing their own game. And it's a very easy drip campaign of, oh, you're 11. Well, I'm 13. No, they're not. They're 45 and across the country, right? But those type of conversations are very easy when somebody is not in a place that's calm. And that happens a lot in gaming too. So when we talk about gaming bullying, I think it's important that we look at it from the perspective that, yes, it can happen from the same people in the community, it can happen from the neighborhood kids who have their gaming log on and they gang up on them in their home too. It can happen from just normal play of everybody ganging up or griefing on that one person. But then you have to look at it from the other perspective when somebody's not in a great mental frame, how easy they are to be preyed upon from people who mean harm to your children. So it's a bigger scale that we need to look at when we talk about gaming bullying. And then teaching kids the safe things, right? What we can share and we can't share. Just like none of us would turn our kids loose in a car, yet we turn over a lot of access to things that can get them in way more trouble without appropriate training, right? From what do we share and role-playing conversations and having the rules and stepping into it and setting up boundaries and maybe having, for many families, they like to have some safety controls or things put in place, like monitoring systems. What are our policies as a family and what are we doing to be able to really keep our kids safe as they're growing? Because a 7-year-old's access is different than a 12-year-old versus a 17-year-old. It's a growth period, right? And so how do we do that? It's not like, here you go, hop on and head out of here. A big part of that is training along the way and also setting up expectations for your kid. Because if your kid's the one doing the bullying and the overpower, you might have a different issue you need to deal with and address. And I have many parents that actually make their kids take our classes and pass with certifications to get any privileges back because they have been so kind of abusive in some of these relationships. So, and in their behavior online. So they make them learn about social media addiction and how it affects their mental health and what they can be prosecuted for legally before they're able to gain any privileges back again. So
That's good.
it's a big deal. It's a big deal out there. Sometimes I don't think it's almost like an octopus that once you start untangling, you're like, ooh, this has got a lot more tentacles to it than I think of it, right? We think of this one piece, but it really can unpack in many different ways. It can be kind of a gateway to a lot of other conversations we need to have with our kids.
Yeah, Candice, I don't remember the exact statistics. I think you said 70% of kids that have been experienced bullying have not come forward.
Never told anyone.
Never told anyone. So that being said, I'm going to make some assumptions here that a lot of parents, because they haven't said anything, are not aware.
Absolutely.
In all fairness to the parent,
Right.
they don't know because the child hasn't said anything.
Right.
So
Right.
can you give parents some tips on what they might do to kind of uncover this information? I loved how you said when they do start to share that information, remain calm. Because I got to tell you,
Don't play the blame game.
Yeah, because like you said, is the punishment take the electronics away, when really now they've come forward and you've taken the electronics away, but that's not really solving the problem. So can you give parents some tips on how do you uncover this and how do you do it in a way that encourages your child to tell you more, even though it's tough to hear that?
So one of the best things that I love is, well, if you're listening to this, the conversation with the kid is, wow, I was listening to this today and I had no idea. Like, really, I had no idea this was going on. It's so different than when I was growing up. And share something maybe you've learned from here today. Is this something you've ever experienced? I'd love to know more. Invite the conversation opening, because our kids love to teach us as well, right? Let this be a way that they can lead and teach. We also, oh my goodness, in our books, we've written, like, these have been life-saving for so many. They're on Amazon because it tells stories, really intense stories of what happens in bullying. And so we've had parents get them, read them. They have study guides in the back, but then have that conversation of, I had no idea. Like the honest, heartfelt of, I had no idea, because we do. Now, guys, I will tell you, this is a very raw, but it's a real account of 12 years old, what it's like to deal with sexting and cyberbullying, all of these different things in today's world, from drugs. Like, it's what it is. It's what, unfortunately, our kids are dealing with. and the mental health aspects. But we've actually had parents get them and read them and give them their child say, I had no idea this was happening. And children have been able to say, I've actually attempted to cut 3 times this month because I couldn't deal with the pain. But because you're willing to have hard conversations and meet them somewhere, the worst thing we can do is stay silent, right? And I can say that when I came to the homeschool community, nobody's really talking about this. I mean, we may in small groups over a cup of coffee with our friends at Bible study, but on a big stage, no one's talking about this issue that is affecting so many. And to give you guys some ideas, I know a lot of people think bullying is a normal part of childhood. Like everybody gets with bullying, kids need to deal with it. The reality is 1 in 6 boys are going to be sexually assaulted by the time they're 18, and 1 in 4 girls will be. That is not a normal part of childhood development just because it's common. This type of damage, which 1 in 4 kids, between 1 in 4 to 1 in 3 kids are dealing with, leaves deep emotional scars. And many of these children have been sexually abused in school from their abusers. We're not talking about just verbal. Other things can compact into this from the abuse cycle. And so when we open a conversation that we're willing and allowing to hear them, you've done so much already, right? Many people don't come to us or our kids. I mean, look at how many boys struggle with porn addiction, but they don't come to ask for help or even know that there is help because there's so much shame. Many people don't even ask for help in bullying because there's shame. They feel they should be able to deal with it, especially boys feel this manlyhood of I should be able to handle myself, or that feeling of less than, right? That they can't like they need mommy or daddy to handle it. But if we haven't given our kids tools to prepare them for how to handle conflict or what to do, we can't expect them to deal with it on their own. It's not reasonable, right? I mean, it's not reasonable. And so this education part of educating ourselves as parents and then opening these conversations is so critical. I've worked with littles. I mean, itty bitty. To me, they're still like little babies, like 8-year-olds. They can almost in PTSD from the trauma they're experiencing because of how violent and abusive and raw it is. That yes, I'm sure, God can heal all things, but that's something many of these kids are going to carry as scars for a very, very long time. And PTSD does not just happen from soldiers in war and other trauma. It does happen in bullying. I speak at leadership conferences and consistently can have 20% of the room find me on a weekend to unpack. They remember their bully growing up and how no one really taught them what to do. They may have gone to an assembly and there was a poster on zero tolerance, but no one taught them how to handle it. They aren't equipped to help their children deal with it because they don't have the skills themselves, right? How can you give what you don't have?
Yeah.
And they're still unpacking their own trauma. They're like, I can still remember the smells and the feeling and the pain and of what that was like, right? So many adults are still kind of have a lot going on there that they haven't really dealt with, and now it's just exploded as a culture for our kids.
So you've given some great tips to help parents to kind of uncover, ask questions, remain calm. How you've recently learned about these different types of bullying tactics or ways that they happen. The flip side of that is, what are some warning signs that a child is bullying others?
First, if somebody comes to you and tells you your kid's bullying, pay attention, guys. Right? Like, seriously. I know it's easy.
Because it's easy to go, my kid would never do that, you know.
It was probably very hard for that person to come to you. Pay attention, right? Is your child, are they very narcissistic? Because you know how we always talk about hurt people? They do. But would you guys believe that most of the research shows that most of our bullies are very narcissistic? They have highly inflated egos in themselves. They have really social high IQs. They're manipulative. They lie, right? A lot of those things we can see. It's not necessarily the kids from bad homes and that are, we're thinking nobody parent is involved. sometimes our really entitled kids, we got a big problem because people have paved a way in their lives for them. So if you're seeing things from your kids, or are they making fun of people? Like, do your kids go around making fun of people or calling them out or name calling? Do you see them watching TV shows and constantly making fun of people? Like, pay attention to the words they're saying in in your home. You know, how do they respond? Do they laugh? Like if they see a video, which is called, here's a term called happy slapping that we teach our parents, or when somebody's videotaping another person being bullied, right? Which is terrible to do. And they post it up online. Is your kid engaging and looking at that behavior? Are they finding it funny to watch other people being humiliated and harmed and put down? Think about those things, right? How do they talk to their siblings? Because there's a difference between sibling rivalry and family bullying. Are they trying to use their power to put a one-up on other people, right? So those are things that we just have to, as parents, sometimes have that moment of check that, wow, we've got some character issues here we really need to talk about. And I think that's where I'd really start, is if you're seeing things, what are you seeing when they're watching videos? Are they making fun of people because they're fat or they're handicapped or they're disabled? Or like start to pay attention, really close attention to what you're seeing and feeling when they're in other groups, right? Are they isolating other kids? Or are they a kid that picks up their sack lunch or their book and sits with another kid, right? How is that child's character? And you can use a lot of those conversations also in child rearing, because we want to be able to grow up young children who are going to be exceptional leaders. And that's a place to talk about it. Like, hey, I noticed at lunch, you and your 3 friends let Jimmy just sit by himself. Is everything okay? Is there something maybe we could do? You know, a lot of those conversations start young and with parents, but we need to be intentional of paying attention to what our kids are doing when we're just interacting anywhere. And I think one of my actually most requested talks is, so you think your child's a bully? And nobody wants to put on the cameras, and I get anonymous questions, and I do them at a lot of Fortune 100s and large company trainings because parents know something's off, right? They just don't know where to start. They know something's right, and they've got to get a handle on it. And instead of ripping everything away, which kids get sneaky, you know, how do we build that back in a way that empowers them to be more, to kind of acknowledge their behavior? And education and creating empathy for others is one of the biggest tools. Education is a big key to prevention in bullying. Yeah. Which is why I'm encouraging so many co-ops to run, like seriously, guys. Our co-ops, our church groups, our leader groups, our small groups, this is an issue affecting so many kids. You can make a huge difference, not just in their lives in that moment, but in the whole culture. Right? You can change the culture and create a place that not only do they have tools and know what to do, but there's a safer place. Because I will tell you, when my son went to church and asked for help, there are places that are tough, right? They're asking him if it's his sin, right? Let's think about that, guys. Do we put victim back on the person who's asking for help in the moment? From struggling with your mental health and how people approach you. I think we have to be really careful with the words we choose when we're talking to people who are hurting. It's really important.
Candice, I want to just circle back for just a second to the bullying thing, the person who is bullying others. Mm-hmm. I think you brought up that parents need to really have those conversations with their. I know you brought up that the parents need to have those conversations with their mm-hmm. kids, because of the fact that it doesn't, if they're bullying in their younger years and it doesn't get corrected, they're going to carry it into adulthood.
Oh, yes.
And the
look
thing
at our
is,
politics.
Look how mean. Yes.
Right. And honestly, we live in a society that almost rewards bullying behavior. I know that's hard to hear, but if we look at the characteristics of bullies, they kind of can step over people for social hierarchy, for leadership. They can use their power to keep others in line and do it. We reward that. And 80% of people will tell you they've worked for a bully as a boss.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing that I want parents to remember is that these people that are bullying others, it can put their jobs in jeopardy.
Yes.
It puts other people's livelihoods in jeopardy. It puts other people's self-esteem in jeopardy. You know, productivity in the workplace. So addressing this, if you have someone who's bullying others at a young age, is just as important as dealing with the victim also, because you want to set your child up for success in adulthood as just as much as you want to set them up for success as you're homeschooling them, or private school or public school. And the thing that to address it is important, because their careers could be at risk if they don't get their bullying under control.
Well, and domestic violence and abusive spouses, and it really leads into a bigger issue. And quite frankly, if you don't, it's very common that if they're bullying outside of the home, they're bullying in the home. Right?
Right.
So it is something that many folks just may not think of, how that it's so impactful. But I'm going to leave you guys with one part of our training. I'm going to leave you guys with this today, because we didn't actually talk about it. But how do you actually identify bullying? Would you guys, I'm just curious, would you guys be able to give me what you think would be a definition of knowing if somebody was bullying? I'm just curious. I'm not leaving you on the spot. I'm not leaving you hanging. I'm just curious. If somebody said, my kid's been bullied, would you be able to give a working definition of what you think that means?
I don't know that I have a working definition.
And are you asking me if the child has been bullied or if they are a bully?
Either way, would you be able to? I'm just curious. I'm going to tell you what I think, or how we break it down. I'm just curious, because I find that a lot of folks, this is one of the biggest issues.
But they don't.
We think we know what bullying is, or we think we'd know it when we see it, but we don't have the vocabulary even to put around it. So I won't leave you guys on the spot, but I just wanted to ask you guys out there, because I find a lot of people, this is a big struggle, and it was for me too. Because when you go to ask for help, you need to equip yourself with the right vocabulary. And so the very first thing that we teach, and you can read the whole big long definition of bullying, you'll read it and you'll be like, oh my gosh, that's a whole lot of like words that mean nothing to me. So we break it down like this. There are 3 letters, A-R-P. Is the behavior aggressive? Is it repeated or a strong probability of threat? And is there a power imbalance? If it's those 3 things, you're dealing with bullying. Is it aggressive? Is it repeated, or is it a really strong threat? And are you dealing with a power imbalance? If you do not have those 3 elements, you are not dealing with bullying. You are most likely dealing with conflict or something else. A bully never wants to resolve conflict. And the problem is, so many leaders try to apply conflict resolution skills because that's what they know in bullying. A bully never wants to solve the problem. You have to have 2 parties equally willing to solve it. In bullying, they want to take that power and control. And many times as leaders, they'll use that against their advantage to you. You won't know that. They're the ones going, yeah. They'll say they want to solve the problem, but they don't. And so that's one of the biggest issues, is you have to know what you're dealing with. Because if you're dealing with true bullying, is it aggressive? Is it a repeated behavior? Is it a power imbalance? Then we shouldn't, as leaders, be using any of our conflict resolution skills, like sitting down, trying to talk it out, because you're trying to assume that bullying is conflict. Bullying is never conflict. So I will give you guys some open thoughts for that, right? Yeah. So when you're dealing with it in your co-ops or groups, do you have tools of how do you deal with bullies?
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to put those resolutions there, you can actually put the victim's life in more harm. And that actually happened to us. When you try to do that, it can actually put the person being abused in more harm. And to kind of give you an idea of that, if somebody were in a domestic violence issue and they were being beaten, first, the therapist wouldn't go to their home and sit down in their kitchen table and expect to work it out, because you need to be in a neutral place. And also, we're dealing with something that's not conflict resolution. We're dealing with abuse. And bullying is one of the largest forms of child abuse that we don't call abuse, but it's abuse. It can be assault, it can be battery, it can be harassment, it can be verbal, it can be all of these things, but it is abuse. And we cannot use conflict resolution when we're handling abuse.
I think that's a very good point.
I do too.
So that's why I'm trying to talk about it in our homeschool community so much.
Yeah,
because I think we have to talk about it.
Yeah, we have to talk about it, and we have to give leaders skills and give parents skills on what to do.
And the kids. And you can all do it together. Literally, this is something that can be done as a group. It's not like it's almost not like teaching physics where you need a physics teacher to teach it. We try to bring it as a way that everybody can do it together and then have deep discussions. Because you need somebody to be able to facilitate these conversations more than teaching it, right? You need to be able to have somebody who is strong in their belief that they want to make a difference and be willing to step out and have some discussions.
Yeah.
Right. So we provide all of the training and things, but we just need people willing to have the hard conversations.
Yeah. Not have the fear. You have to move past the fear because the kids are too important.
They are really, they're our future.
Absolutely.
I mean, God, I mean, like,
and the mama,
I'm getting all teary-eyed now.
Yeah, I know.
Seriously, like I'm.
The mama is important. The family's important. The kid's important. And if we're fearful to have a conversation because we don't know how to handle it, then we're in a bad place. We have to move past
and
fear.
There's so many families that can't do this on their own, because I want you guys to remember it's possible that the mom's also, or the dad, or there's some other things going on we don't always have the information to.
Yeah.
So when we're strong as leaders, when we're willing to run small groups, when we're willing to bring this subject out, not only are you equipping your leaders that desperately need it, and you could be mitigating all kinds of lawsuits and all that other nonsense, like put all the legal stuff over there, you're equipping generational changes in trees. Yeah. Because parents, as we talked about earlier, parents can't give what they don't have. Leaders can't give what they don't have. Most of us went to school for English or history, or we got the basics. We didn't grow up with this, so it's hard to teach it, right? So can we come alongside this generation as it's changing and provide them resources and conversations so that they are better equipped to not only lead and to be able to create solutions and problems and help their friends dealing with this? Because the reality is leaders are probably not going to know, but their peers will. And so can the peer know who to look for help? Can we equip that the peer can step in and get help or know when to call? Would they have the information to step in with a friend or know what to do, right? It's very possible, because they're going to know more because they don't tell us. I mean, did you guys tell your parents everything you did as a teenager? If my parents to this day knew everything I did as a teenager, I think I'd be locked up back at home. And I'm a 44-year-old woman.
If my parents were watching, I told you everything.
Yeah, right. My parents are probably like, I don't want to know.
My group.
But even
I told you everything.
But right, even the best of relationships we had with our parents, and we have strong relationships, they didn't know everything we did. No. And so we're really naive to think that we know what's going on.
No.
I mean, it's kind of naive.
I think that's always been one of the things that boggles my mind sometimes, is when I look at this little person, I go, oh my God, I don't know anything going on in that mind. What's going on in that mind? I'm like, oh my gosh. And when they're little and they're a baby, it's like, you somehow you think you know everything, but when they get bigger and they start having a personality, and you're like, oh my, they're their own people.
With their own opinions, and they were beautifully and uniquely created to be different. So the skills that work for one child is not going to work for the other, which is why we have to prepare and equip them with multiple, right? They have to have enough tools in their toolbox that when something goes wrong, they know what to do. Yeah. And if we haven't prepared them, then we're really not doing them service to launch them in this time, because they were created for a time as this. We have to give them the tools to be successful in the mission field, right? In their work, in their marriages, with their children.
Yeah. And no fear.
No fear.
Just because it's scary and it looks something new, you don't have to be afraid, Mama.
That's right. No fear.
So we had somebody want to have the name of the book. So if you want to flash your book again.
Oh, yeah, we have a bunch. So I will tell you guys, that's our first series.
Yeah.
If you're looking for little kids, oh my gosh, guys, I should probably be more prepared when I go on live. We have a bunch. We have our Luke the Lionhearted series. We have our parent series. They are on our website. You can go to our website. We have our parents books. We have our Luke the Lionhearted stuff. I am super excited. Like May 12th. I just picked the day an hour ago. So you guys are the first ones I've ever told. And I'm very excited. May 12th, we are releasing our Leadership for Gen Z Bullying, Mental Health, and Social Media Addiction, which is actually for leaders, for teens to be able to take for high school credits, to run in co-ops, for parents. It is going to be released in an e-course, which I am so excited about. And
Yeah,
May 12th is our big day. I am so excited.
After this.
Yeah, and I'm very excited because I'm actually in my Bully Broken Redeemed private Facebook group. I am actually going to do a 16-week like live. Everybody who does it can come through live with me and get live training along with our e-training. We include tests, quizzes, 16 activities, like everything is done so that small groups can use it. Individuals can use it. Families can use it. We've actually had nannies call and ask if they can use it because we do certifications. We offer certification programs. We've had parents use it for kids who were on the bullying side or being bullied to open conversations. And so now we are launching an entire leadership class on it. We have a health class out now, and we're going to release an entire leadership skills class. And I am so excited.
I'm excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'll pop the codes in below because we're offering $30 off on our pre-launch. So it's under $50 for our entire 16-week class with this everything. But that's in our pre-launch. So I'll pop it below.
Yeah. And also for those of you who maybe didn't catch it, can you share your website address again, Candice?
So bulliedbrokenredeemed.com.
Yeah. And Candice is in our group. So you can tag her with questions. She is here.
My DMs are always open too, right?
Yeah.
And I do say I take on some. My schedule, because I'm an international speaker now, my schedule's gotten a little tight, but I do take on some private coaching clients if somebody's really in a tough spot. But I do have a team. It's not just me. I have a team that help me too. If you're looking for, hey, we've left and we need to talk about this middle of the road and a plan for healing, we do that also.
Yeah.
So. If you're looking for a speaker for your next leader event, I'm looking to talk to leaders. Can you tell? Because I'm like, if I can impact the leaders, you guys can make a difference. Like you are so important. So I'm looking to talk to leaders.
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah. And if I can, I'll keep my eye out for some speaking engagements for you too.
I love that. I love talking. Well, God is, I left the corporate world. Like I would have thought this is what I do, but literally I put my feet on the ground every day, and to serve families in this area, it's hard, but it is such a privilege to walk with them during a dark time and a hard time, and to help them see the blessing and come out the other end. You know, our biggest thing is hurt people, but healed people help others heal. Exactly. And when you come out that other end, your kids can be just really on fire, and your family can be on fire for making a difference. God wastes nothing. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Candice.
It was wonderful. So very informative. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's always awesome being here with you ladies.
I know. We haven't talked enough lately.
I know.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I know that a lot of families will see this and will get themselves more prepared to having those conversations and hopefully help in the healing process.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah. Well, thank you.
We appreciate it so much. She's going to put the links at the bottom so y'all can find everything. And she is in the group, so you can ask questions. She'll answer when she sees it. She's like me; she'll be like a hot mess and see it, in 2 days. But
you can DM me too.
Yeah,
we'll make it happen.
Yeah, but y'all have a wonderful afternoon, mamas, and we will see you soon.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.